Well, welcome back to the Great Outside Podcast here this week again. This week, I'm fortunate to have Spencer Deutz as my guest joining us on the podcast this time. And Spencer, I know you've become accustomed to Devil's Lake from a lot of different aspects from tournament life. I know you've got a camping spot out here, and you're very heavily involved with getting the youth involved in the angling industry. And we've had a lot of youth clinics put on here. But for those that aren't familiar with you, Spencer, I'd just kind of like to get a little introduction on who you are and how you became about in the fishing industry.
Yeah, so I actually was born in Devil's Lake. Lived there for about a year. My family lived there for a while, and then we had to move into Moorhead, and now I live in Fargo. We just always fished Devil's Lake. Like I said, I was born there, so it's always been a custom. It's been home water, and it's awesome fishing. So how do you not want to be there? But as far as getting into it, I always fished with my dad. Grew up fishing all the time during the week, during the weekend, walleye fishing, northern fishing, whatever. So that's kind of how I got into fishing and the outdoors. My grandpa is a big goose hunterman, so we'd always go goose hunting and all that stuff. So we got into the outdoors that way. And then we just took it to the fishing level, and I'm competitive. So I fished my first tournament ever, I think, on Devil's Lake when I was really young with my dad. It was I can't even remember how old, but it was one of the chamber tournaments. I'd actually like to see results or way back when, because we really didn't know the lake. We didn't know anything. We didn't know what we were doing. But we just went out and fished, and we're just interested in how they all worked and how many people were there. And we're just amazed on these people bringing up these giant bags of walleye. I couldn't believe it. Like, how are these people catching these fish? So it took a long time to figure it out. But yeah, so that's where I started way back when, tournament fishing with my dad, really.
Wonderful. I know, and I do a lot of fishing with my dad, and we haven't done a tournament together yet, but I think that's a great thing to do. And you talk to a lot of people in this industry, or people that love to be outdoors, and it seems like it's a father-son, father-daughter, whole family tradition, and it just kind of keeps getting passed on. And I think that's become a theme over the last month and a half, 2 months of these podcasts. It's the outdoors is something that you keep passing on in a family tradition, and it helps keep it alive.
Right, and especially with you look at some numbers, the license numbers, who's buying what, how many states are selling licensing, that sort of stuff. Sometimes it's going down, sometimes it's going up or staying steady, whatever. But we need to grow it, right? Like get all these kids involved as much as possible to grow the sport through education and outreach. Basically, if we're not doing that, there's going to be nobody on the back end to continue the sports, whether it's leisure, they're bringing money to the economy on the weekends, or even into the tournaments, and that's a whole different conversation. But yeah, just getting the kids involved is a big thing. Not only fishing, hunting too. It's there's a lot there to be said as well.
There is, and I remember you guys fishing our tournaments, the chamber tournament, some of the professional walleye tournaments that come to Devil's Lake. And I think it's almost like goes without saying that after every tournament, I'm pretty sure it seemed like you were there with the youth clinics that we'd host, and it was a part of the MPAA. And I always saw that there was a huge crowd and a huge draw to that after the weigh-ins on the final days. And I think that is just one of the most wonderful things, to be able to give those youth the experience and, the knowledge that you have, and the ability to give them, even something as simple as a fishing rod that can get them introduced and started into the outdoors.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the great thing about the MPAA, for those who aren't aware of what it is. It's the National Professional Anglers Association, and anybody can sign up. You don't have to be a tournament fisherman or a guide or anything. You can sign up and learn, and they have a annual conference where you can attend and learn all these things. And like, the industry leaders are there, for industry reps to the companies, to the top walleye fishermen in the world. So you can just learn so much. And they do have the Future Angler Foundation. And based off of that is where we do these kids clinics. And anybody can put a kids clinic on if you want. It's, it doesn't take much, just a little bit of time, really. And they'll send you rods and reels and t-shirts and water bottles and whatever to give away to the kids. So I don't think I'm not doing anything different. I'm just doing it, right? Like, there's just not a lot of people. I don't know if they're not wanting to put in the time or whatever it is, but we're just, so we do them after the weigh-ins at the tournaments, and we're already there. So it's not like we're, for the tournament ones, we're not doing anything extra. We just bring the materials with, and the kids are running all over. So why not have a kids clinic at a tournament weigh-in, right? So it's just a perfect spot. So I would recommend it, especially for if you don't have a lot of extra time, you could just do one at the weigh-ins because the kids are already there and you're already there. So just an extra 30 minutes of your time is nothing crazy.
It goes a long ways. And I know a lot of those kids, I mean, just getting to be able to come over and learn from you guys is just a huge thing for them. And I'm sure a lot of them will be something they always remember for the rest of their life. And so basically anyone that is interested in hosting one of these little kids youth clinics can just get a hold of the MPAA, and will they kind of help kind of set you up with that?
Yeah, yep. MPAA.net is their website. I do believe you have to be a member. You can
Hmm.
sign up and become a member of the MPAA, and then you just fill out a form, like the date, time, how many people expected, whatever. It doesn't have to be accurate, just kind of a general thing. And they'll send you materials, and you host the clinic. You do have to. They have a very short curriculum that you have to abide by. You have to touch on a few different things, such as aquatic nuisance species and a few things like that. But other than that, just run it how you want, and they're pretty quick and easy. And you'd be surprised how many people show up. You just simple Facebook marketing. You don't even just put a post out there saying you have a clinic, and people will share it, and they will show up.
I love it. And how many of those do you usually throw out a year, or does it kind
It
of
depends
vary?
on the year. Yeah, 10 to 15. We just started doing them at the tournaments, like I said, but then my wife Carly and I started traveling around and doing them here and there in different cities, and we've had some really good success with that. And people travel to come to them. It's actually crazy. And what we didn't really realize starting them was it's not just for the kids, right? Like there's some parents that show up that know absolutely nothing about fishing, but they want to get their child or a different child into fishing, and they want to learn too. So they're there learning just as much as their kids are, just so they can get them in the outdoors, right? So that was a kind of a big takeaway over the last few years is, yeah, they're kids clinics, but now we kind of been promoting them as friends or youth and family fishing clinics because it's more for the family than it is just for the kids. So that's it was surprising, but it's great.
It's huge. And like I was talking on one of the previous podcasts, we do something similar. We have a kids ice fishing tournament in the winter during our Shiverfest weekend. And it's one of those things where it's great because there's a lot of people just in the immediate Devils Lake area that, I'm sure would love to ice fish, but they don't have the equipment or, the means or know nothing about it. And so it's a great opportunity where, our local fire department and, the chamber and all of us kind of come together and give the kids a little starter pack and get the holes drilled and help them learn some things. So, and a lot of the parents are there with them to help, and a lot of them are, I bet I would be interested to see the numbers after something like that, where how many of the families will actually go out and buy a couple of things and start to learn the whole ice fishing or open water fishing just after an event like that.
It is, yeah, it's pretty wild. I'll get pictures and videos even up to two years after I've held a clinic, and they're still using the same fishing rod that we've been giving them. And they do come back. I've had some parents come up and say, he doesn't need one. My child doesn't need a rod. He's already got three because they attended, the last three clinics because we usually do them annually on the same weekends and places. So it's pretty crazy how far it goes and how much they do remember it and how much it helps the families, especially the parents too.
It's got to be very fulfilling and rewarding when that happens.
Yeah, it is definitely. And then sometimes they'll even send you pictures of fish. And in my basement, I have a whole stack of thank you cards from families just sending, thanks for the clinic, whatever. So it's pretty neat.
Yep. So in that same token, talking about youth, I want to say, are you a part of the Angler Young, is it AYA tournament in Devils Lake?
Yep. So I fished that with my niece and nephew. We've been doing that for, I don't know, probably 5 years now. So it's an awesome event. It's very unfortunate that it's canceled this year with the things going on, but
Mm-hmm.
it is what it is, and it's kind of how it has to be. But yeah, we have fished it for about 5 years now, and it's been great.
The thing I think, and people that haven't seen this, I think need to go. I can't remember if it's on your Facebook page, but it was a couple of years ago. I want to say you guys were on a bobber bite, and I think the kids were jumping in, swimming around the water, and I think you were catching walleyes at the same time as all that going on.
Yeah, yep. It was scorching hot, and the kids wanted to jump in, so they just jumped in, and then we got lucky and had a bobber go down, and it was like a 21-inch walleye or something. But yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Oh,
But even like that, so like the memories of that, the kids still talk about it. People talk about it. Just crazy stuff that you can build memories with the kids in the boat, especially for a tournament like that. It's very well ran, and it's no coincidence that it absolutely fills up. within, I want to say, the first couple days every year, just because everyone wants to get out there and fish it with their child.
No, that's I think it's a very unique thing, and we're lucky to be able to have that here. And like you said, this year obviously it's postponed until the following year, but we're looking forward to having that back again in the summer of 2021. It's a huge thing for us to be able to have that in our backyard.
For sure. And it's not just about the tournament, right? It's the rules meeting the night before where Games Galore comes and they put all their games, and the kids are playing on them. And then you got the hot dogs for the kids, and then you got their tournament. And then after the tournament, you got the weigh-in, and every kid goes across the stage and gets to talk about what they caught and how they caught it. And the sponsors for that event are incredible. They give the kids, I mean, they get hundreds of dollars worth of stuff. Doesn't matter what place you got. Every kid walks away with, I believe Shields is a huge sponsor of that, and they're giving them rods, and Berkeley might be a sponsor. I'm not sure on all of them, but yeah, there's so many gifts. So it's pretty awesome stuff.
No, that's great. And it gives that kids the opportunity to pretend, like for that weekend that they're a professional walleye angler, walking across the stage, getting the whole, from beginning to end, what it's like when you guys are in the tournament life, going to rules meetings and, putting together a game plan and watching it come together, and then be able to, talk about what you guys use for tactics and how it played out or how it may not have played out. And it just, I think in their eyes, it's something that really opens their world to, holy cow, this is like the real deal right here in front of us.
Right. And it's, I bet you'd be surprised, but if you followed some of the kids through, they're the ones fishing the tournaments now, all the way up to the professional stuff. So it does make a difference, and it sticks with them. That's for sure.
That's wonderful. And like I said at the beginning, I'm all about the youth and getting them, whether it's fishing or hunting. It's an important thing. And, it's one of those things, if it doesn't get passed along, it's going to get lost in translation. So I think I'm very happy the way you guys are doing that with the youth clinics that you are doing at the end of the tournaments, and, just taking that extra 30 minutes to help, introduce that one kid that may not have that opportunity to get out in the water.
Yeah, thank you. It's hopefully we can continue. Our goal this year is to do them in the fall, because we've had to cancel them all. We had one that was in Tulna at their ice fishing tournament, but that was in early February, so before all the COVID stuff hit, and then we've had to cancel every single one since then. So hopefully we can get them going in the fall. I just don't want to have a year where we don't do any. It'd be too bad, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, we'll keep our fingers crossed that pans out and we're able to, you guys can have a few of those this
For
coming
sure.
fall. I kind of like to talk a little bit more about tournament life. I know you have been in the tournament world for how many years now?
Seriously, probably 10, 11 years when we actually started taking it seriously. We, again, fished tournaments before that, but we had no idea what we were doing. So there's a lot to learn. But yeah, so it's for 10 years really getting into things. Yeah.
No, that's great. And I think I got to give credit to a lot of the tournament anglers. I talked to a lot of them, and I feel like that's not an easy, a lot of them are doing it as that's their job. A lot of them doing it for fun, but it's also just, it's got to be grueling being on the road day in and day out. And weather is not always the greatest. And we've been fortunate that we've been able to host quite a few of the professional tournaments right here in our backyard in Devil's Lake. And I know you guys have been a part of a few of those tournaments yourself.
Yeah, it's been good. You never know what you're going to get the Devils. I love fishing tournaments there because anybody can come from wherever, which they usually do for in the tournaments, and they can fish however they want to fish and catch them. So there's always people catching fish. There's always good competition. The weather does play a role sometimes, but it is what it is with the big lake, and the weather does play a factor on where and how and when you're going to fish places. So, which is probably one of the biggest things we've learned over the past 10 years on Devil's Lake is just the weather, the wind speed, and water temperature plays a crucial role, and clarity too if you're fishing shallower stuff.
What would you say is your probably go-to or favorite way to fish Devil's Lake?
We bobber fish all the time. That's kind of, if it's all the way from spring to fall, it's, if we can bobber fish, we're bobber fishing. Yeah.
And that's at all depths too, isn't it?
Everything. Yep. Yeah. I'd rather find localized spots where they're, like one boat spots versus, fishing a whole shoreline where you're just going back and forth all day and picking them off here and there. I know the big fish tend to be together. So if you can find one, he's not the only one sitting in there. So, but you got to be patient too. it's not like under most tournaments that we do well in, we're only catching 5 fish a day, 6 fish a day. We're not catching 20. So if you're fishing for 7 hours and you catch, 5 fish, you're literally weighting them. You're not hammering them. But the ones you
Yep.
catch are nice. So it's a whole different mentality. If you're out there fun fishing, you probably leave before you get a first bite because you've sat there for, 2 hours and haven't got one. Well, you're going to go. You're probably not going to sit there, but they're there. It just depends on what time they're going to come through, but they will come.
It's almost like deer hunting in a way, sitting in a tree stand during rut, just, may be there at sunrise, or you may have to sit and wait 3-4 hours for that deer to come through, but it's just patience pays off and persistence.
It is. It's exactly what it is. And you got to sit there. If you leave, you can miss that. And it's typically a half hour to 45 minutes is when it happens. Oh. The first one will come, and then especially the deeper stuff, they come quick. If you're the shallower stuff, it doesn't seem to come so quick. I don't know. Sometimes you'll get a flurry, but then you never catch another one the rest of the day. So you're sitting there for 7 hours and you caught 5 walleyes, right? It could happen over the time or quick, but if you leave and you're not there, then you're gonna miss out. So it's I don't know. It's crazy. Devil's Lake, how they bite is it sometimes doesn't make any sense.
Well, and it's crazy too that the bobber fishing can work year round, and just the fact that you can catch walleyes on slip bobbers, because you go to a lot of other lakes like Lake Oahe or Sakakawea, and you talk to people and you're like, they don't even know what you're talking about, how you target fish with slip bobbers like that. And it's just, I pretend to love that because of the fact it brings me back to ice fishing with tip ups when flags go up. It's like a little kid where you watch your bobber go down. I never get sick of watching that happen.
Right. It's just great how the bobber goes down, and it could be a 12-inch walleye or the 31, you never know, especially on those like what it's going to be, but it's more consistent. This is kind of why I also like doing it. I think bobber fishing is way more consistent versus like pitching. A lot of guys like to pitch, but there's so many factors that go into that. Yeah, you can catch giant fish, but it's got, you need a 10 to 20 mile an hour wind. You need the water clarity's got to be good. The temperature can't drop overnight to certain. I mean, a lot of guys like to pitch pelican, but say you get a big wind, they're caught them for 3 days, they left them, they go back on the tournament, and you had a big wind. Well, it's shallower body of water, so it could muddy up real quick. If that's all you got, you're done. Like you're not going to catch them. So it's just, there's too many variables that go into that for me. I just like the bobbers because it's way more consistent.
No, and
it's not as weather dependent as say pitching in later in the year.
No, that makes complete sense. And it still is fun to catch them pitching, but when you can have more of a consistent bite, that's always ideal.
Well, for sure. But it's patience too. You gotta pack a lot of sandwiches.
Yep. Pack a lot of sandwiches, hopefully have some good radio stations you can listen to, good company. And yeah. I know your wife fishes a lot of tournaments with you too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we do the chamber one together every year. She's fished, I think, an AIM event with me. She likes to fish at least one a year, so we'll pick one. Recently, it's been the chamber.
Yep.
But yeah, with her, we're just bobber fishing. She's not going to be jig wrapping or pitching for 8 hours. That's just not going to happen. So. Hey, and usually she takes about a 2-hour nap in the days.
and then that's when the flurry of the bobbers to go down, and it's like, hey, on and.
Yeah. Last year at the chamber, our last fish, I had the fish on, and I had to wake her up to net.
That's funny. Yeah. Kind of, as we kind of wrap this podcast, if I want to maybe pick your brain on one of your most memorable or fondest memories, probably of growing up in North Dakota and fishing Devil's Lake, and something that kind of sticks out in your brain.
Well, so we grew up fishing with my dad, right? And we've worked at these tournaments. That's been what we've been doing forever. And we've had some really close calls on winning. And even now, I don't think I've won a tournament with my dad yet. So last year in the casino, we took second. So that was a good memory just because we were so close. And we also took second in MWC many years back on Devil's Lake. So those two, just because they're our best finishes, and we worked so hard at it. But then I've won 2 tournaments with my wife, Carly, right? So those are some pretty good stuff too. So just those high finishes, it just doesn't get better than that.
Oh, that's wonderful. And hats off to you. You're one heck of a fisherman, and just following along on your tournaments. And when you're on Devil's Lake, half the time I beat my head. I'm like, how is he pulling fish like this? Like, you go out there and you get beat up for 2-3 days, and somehow you manage to find fish. And it's a true testament.
There's a lot of luck involved too. I mean, I don't care. You could be the best fisherman out there, but even if place high, you have to get lucky, right? Like if you don't. So last year in the chamber, we had two really big fish that I hadn't caught those fish all year, and they just happened to come on in the tournament. Like those two fish come in pre-fishing. We don't catch them. We don't, we don't win, right? So you have to get lucky. There's no question about that, right? So there is a lot of luck involved with it too.
Oh, absolutely. I know my grandpa used to always tell me I'd rather be lucky than good. And I think there's a lot of truth.
There's a lot to say that.
Yeah,
yeah, especially in tournament fishing.
Oh, sometimes you just got to have a little bit of luck on your side to give you that extra edge.
Right. I mean, you see, there's a lot of guys that finish. I mean, and you can be really good. Like there's a bunch of guys out there that'll finish in top 10 all the time. If they just got lucky during the tournament day, then they'd win, right? So it's typically the guy who wins gets lucky somewhere in the tournament with a huge bite or two big bites or whatever, just to bump them up over the second or third place person. But every now and then you'll just find that guy who's just had a weekend. He just figured it out. There's no luck involved. He just knew exactly what was going on and way more than the other guys. So, but I think luck plays a role into it a little more often than not.
I think you're right on that. And I think that's probably one of the most accurate statements out there.
Yeah. I don't know if too many guys will admit it, but it's true.
Well, Spencer, is there anything else you would like to touch on in regards to the youth and the clinics you host and the MPA, or anything else in regards to Devil's Lake before we wrap this up?
No, not really. I mean, I appreciate you having me on. We'll just keep an eye out for the kids clinic flyers and post them when we get them, and hopefully we can get a bunch of kids this fall if we're able to. So.
Yep. And, we'll do our best with, the ones that you are able to host in Devil's Lake or in the area. We'll push that information out. And I give you kudos again for having these wonderful little events. And we look forward to seeing more of them come in the future as they can.
For sure. Yeah. I really appreciate you having me.
Hey, thanks, Spencer. And hope you have a great summer and are able to get out in the water a few times.
Yes, we'll do.
Take care.
You too.